myself.
Okay. We're building a PC! For those of you who don't know, I've been streaming on a MacBook for the last year, which is why I'm in constant agony. Take it away, I guess.
All right, well, we're gonna be building with this is a B450i board from Gigabyte because we're gonna be using a Ryzen 5600X for her processor. And so I always like to just I start with the motherboard, and because parts are smaller these days, and because this is an ITX build, it's kind of hard to maneuver once you get inside the case because there's not a lot of room. So anything that I can stack onto the motherboard before I put it in the case, I usually do. When you get these, you get this fancy film. This is to keep the parts from being fried from static electric shock. Usually with these, you'll get the motherboard, you get a manual. Manual is going to come in handy later. But then they give you these antiquated things. I usually just toss them because nobody has disk drives anymore. You'll get this. This is a back plate. That'll come in handy later. You'll get a couple of SATA cords. SATA cords are used for connecting hard drives. We aren't connecting any old school hard drives today, so we won't need those either. Sometimes they'll give you a couple extra screws that come in the bag. That's probably impossible to see.
There you go.
Some screws. Those are just extra standoffs, and I'll explain what standoffs are when we go ahead and put this in the case. And this one is a Wi-Fi board, so it came with a Wi-Fi antenna. Obviously you can buy external Wi-Fi antennas, but if you're going to be running Wi-Fi, it's nice to be using that if you can. And I saw Mr. Moosehug's comment earlier about these being incompatible. If anything is incompatible, it's not my fault. I gave her a list to go buy. And,
wait, are they not? He was just trolling.
Yes,
really.
he was. Alright, so we got our little motherboard here. It's actually going to sit like this in the computer. On the motherboard, you got this. This is an ITX box. It's small. You've got a few spots. So this main spot right in the middle is where the CPU is going to go. ITX typically only have 2 slots for your memory, and we'll install the memory here in a little bit. You've got your 24-pin power connector. You've got your SATA plugs, so if you are plugging in any 2.5 or 3.5 inch hard drives, they go in these type of plugs. You've got all of these other things used to control fans and RGB, LED lights, and your USBs and all of that sort of stuff. That's where your manual is going to come in handy. It's going to explain what all of those are. But for now, I guess we'll go ahead and pop the CPU in first. You've got a big piece of box. This is the stock AMD cooler. We're going to be using an aftermarket cooler, so we won't use this, but their coolers do all right. I don't use them, but some people do, and they work just fine. For those of you that haven't ever seen an actual processor, this is the processor. This camera might be better. They're not very big. I'll pull it out. This is kind of the brains of the operation. Yeah, don't drop it. Dropping it would be bad. They have lots of really, really tiny pins. So processor is going to go in these slots, and you probably can't see all that well, but there's a bunch of little tiny holes in this part that these pins have to align with. So to make sure that you get this lined up, there is, if you can't really see, let's see. So on this one, there is a little golden triangle in this corner, but nothing else in the other corners. So I'll take that, and on the board, really don't know if this is gonna work. Which corner am I looking for? So in this corner, there's also a triangle here, and the other corners are blank. So, and if you look really closely, which you won't be able to see on camera, but there's a square notch in this corner, and the rest of them are diagonal notches. So that's how you know how to line up what you're going for. So we've got our golden triangle, we've got a triangle over here, And that's gonna drop in right like that. Once I drop it in, I just like to look at it, make sure it looks aligned. You can give it a very, very gentle jiggle, and it shouldn't move really at all. And then you just lock it in. So this lever goes down.
Oh, so you don't push it in or anything?
No.
It just sits right in there.
Yep, lever goes down and clicks over this little stop here. And now the CPU's in.
Also, all of the specs for all these parts, if anyone's interested, are located in my About panel as well.
For this build, we're going to be using an NVMe M2 drive by Samsung. NVMe drives are cool because they go right on the motherboard. They don't take up any additional space in your case, which when you're building a small computer is important. Obviously you can see there's not really anywhere for it to go. It's because on these boards they hide them behind this heat sink. Always helpful to have a small ramekin or something that you can keep screws in so you don't lose them. So again, you can see M2 drive's pretty small, pretty sweet, don't take up a lot of space. We've got a little slot here. You can see that it has kind of a long end and a short end to it. And if you look, you can't really see at this angle, but within this slot, there's a long end and a short end. So we're just gonna insert it here.
Jesus,
Lines
it's
up right
tiny.
there. Peel off that backing there. Going to make sure this is going the right way. Slide this back in where it came from. Don't ever over tighten anything because you can break these boards if you tighten things too tight. All right, so for RAM, we've got some Crucial Ballistics. I like Crucial RAM. They're one of the more reputable brands. Gonna go in these two slots here. And one thing you want to look for if you are buying parts is that your RAM and your CPU cooler are compatible. So you'll see we're going to put a cooler on top of all of this, and sometimes your RAM can be too tall for the cooler. I'm pretty sure the cooler is going to work with this RAM. I looked it up and I think compatibility wise we'll be fine, but we'll find out. With every case, you'll have all of the box and cables usually tucked somewhere inside the case. These are various parts that we'll need to go ahead and put things together. All of these things that were bundled together are going to be front panel connectors, and by front panel I mean the front of the case. And then since of this one, you know, some will have USB ports and stuff on the front. This one, it's all on top. So these are going to be plugged in for this one that says HD audio on it. Probably can't see that well, but HD audio is going to be for your audio ports on the front. This one, actually, this is really cool. So normally these are all loose. For those of you that have built computers, you know the front panel reset, power switch, power LED mess. That's a pain in the ass to deal with. Cooler Master has grouped things together and pre-bundled them, so that's really nice. And then you've got this, which is a USB 3.0, 3.1 front panel connector, so that's going to control our USB ports. When we're looking in this case, so the motherboard that we assembled is going to lay right down in here. It's already got the standoffs in place for the ITX, so that's nice. We'll be able to lay it right down in there. The power supply, which we'll install in a minute, the power supply is going to be what powers everything, what plugs into the wall. It's going to go in this little cage here. I think we'll probably have to remove some screws to be able to slide it in there, but that'll hold it in place. Some cases the fans will come pre-installed, and this specific one, they included the fans with the case. It does actually come with you probably can't see it really well through the glare and everything. This is a PCI visor cable. These come in handy when you want to mount graphics cards, some people will mount them vertically and stuff. Kind of expensive, so I'm kind of surprised they included that in the case. So I've got an assortment of screws here. One thing I like to do before laying the motherboard down in there is, because you never really know which screws go to what. So usually I'll like grab a couple of different looking screws and try to thread them into the standoffs. Typically I want the motherboard to be like one of the last things I install, just because it's delicate and has all the components, and sometimes if you're putting in fans or power supply, you can accidentally bang things around, so I usually save that part for last. So we'll go ahead and do the power supply next. So like I said, I think this case has a bracket for the power supply, which is kind of nice, but we're gonna have to remove it. So next piece is power supply, Corsair SF600. Corsair and Seasonic are probably the two top tier power supply manufacturers. We've got your power cable that's gonna plug into the wall. We got a whole bunch of other cables. These are the cables that are gonna run from the power supply to individual components on the PC. For instance, there's your 24-pin power connector that I mentioned on the motherboard earlier, and some other ones. We'll run those when the time comes. And little tiny power supply. Silent operation, low operation loads, blah, 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 blah. So basically it's telling us if the fan's not spinning, don't worry and think it's broken. It's probably because the fan is off for low silent mode. So we've got a pigtail on this particular case that runs out to the back to where you can plug it in. It looks like it's loops around and wants to plug in from the bottom side. So we will mount the power supply like this, I guess. Side we're in. This case is really sweet. It's way easier to build in than my case. I have like a 10-liter ITX case. It's tiny. That's a lot smaller. Okay. All right, pro tip for fans. So you look at a fan and you think, oh, which way is the air gonna go? If you look around the rim, just about any fan, it's gonna have little arrows that tell you which direction the blades rotate and which direction the air goes. So in this case, we want these pulling air into the case.
God, that's cursed. I love it though.
So this is going on an AMD chip, so these guys are going to go a long ways here. I think this is going to be pointed out. That's the way it usually is. Or actually reversed. Alright. Instructions, sometimes they're important.
God is great, beer's good.
Good job, Bunny.
And Bunny is crazy.
And Bunny's baby.
We gotta install Windows and all that stuff.
Okay. I don't know what that means.
Oh, you gotta plug it into
plug it in and turn it on.
Okay.
You gotta plug it in and turn it on.
You can plug it in here?
Well, I need a monitor and a keyboard and a mouse.
Oh.
You can show it off though.
I can, but it's over there. And I was recording you, but I felt weird just like recording your back. So it could come and just sit over here. Thumbnail. YouTube thumbnail.